Hey everyone, on the Gilbert K Show, we welcome award-winning filmmaker Brett Alan Bentman, the creative force behind 90 Feet from Home, Copper Bill, Texas Twister, the Bull Shark Trilogy, and upcoming hits Minnie's Midnight Massacre, Aladdin, and Aladdin's Revenge. Co-owner of B22 Films and Sand Dollar Pictures with his producer wife, Tiffany McDonald Bentman, Brett delivers powerful, unforgettable stories to the screen. Let's welcome Brett Alan Bentman.
Hey, Brett, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining in. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to watch or listen to a clip from your latest work. What we're going to see or listen to.
This is a trailer for the film 90 Feet from Home.
I know what you want to do.
What do you know?
I know you got it out for Pop. And I know you got a rifle in your truck with a serial number on it. And I know that'll lead you back to the body.
The lawyer now?
I'm your brother, man.
Okay, great. Could you start telling me a little bit about yourself and what sparked your interest in producing, directing, and writing?
Well, I'm from the Northeast. I grew up in New York and New Jersey, and just had a very, different career path through college. I was getting a degree in economics and figured I'd work for a big bank one day, or at one point I had dreams of being a politician, and then going to law school was something I thought about as well, but none of that really worked out for various reasons. So I got into screenwriting. A roommate in my fraternity in college's sister worked for Steven Spielberg, and he would tell me all these different stories, experiences that she had, and I always thought that was really cool and fun. And so I started screenwriting in college and never had a lot of success with it, probably because it wasn't very good, like everybody else started out. I didn't go to film school, so the way I learned how to write scripts is by reading scripts. So I would, download scripts on the internet. I'd go to the library and look at scripts, and so I self-taught. This is before YouTube, so it was a little more difficult to self-teach anything. And then screenwriting became kind of a passion of mine, which is still my favorite part of the movie process, because it's the inception of the story, and I consider myself very good at it. And then I graduated into directing films, basically short films off of a dare. I dare you to make a short film, and so I did that, and then it just kind of snowballed into still writing, but then also writing and directing. The feature films. We've done some commercial work, things like that. And that's kind of how my roots came up in the business. And it's kind of bloomed into what it is today, which is more of a movie studio.
Hmm? That's amazing. That's amazing. And what's one of a most memorable experience when you started out?
The only one that sticks with me is, there are a lot of them, but the one that really sticks with me, at the time I'd written a screenplay about these animals that have overtaken the earth, and humans have to go underground, and the animals have the earth, and at the time, it turns out this was a complete BS situation. I really wasn't going to get rich and famous off of this, but I was told I might. So I went to Los Angeles and had lunch with this gentleman. And it was on one of the studio lots. It escapes me which one now. Warner Brothers. And I'm sitting there in this, beautiful restaurant on the Warner Brothers lot, and I'm a little starstruck because I'm like looking over my shoulder, and Carl Urban was sitting there having lunch with someone. And then I look over my other shoulder, and Sandra Bullock walked in, and she's having lunch, and here's this 20-something-year-old kid with no clue what he's doing. And I don't even know what I'm saying to this guy at this point, because I'm trying not to look at Sandra, because I thought she was beautiful, and I was like, wow, that's a real person that I've only seen on TV before. And I even forgot Carl was there. It was just so. And then, I come home to Atlanta where I lived at the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be famous. You know, these famous people. And then, 5 years later, I'm still working corporate America and broke, and, just the dream never happened. But that stuck with me because I was, very much a nobody at that point. But, was in a room with a bunch of somebodies, and it kind of, I guess it gave me some fuel to be like, okay, where I want to be. Just wasn't the right time.
Yeah. That's great. How do you describe yourself in 3 words?
Oh gosh. Gosh, that's a good one. I don't know that I have 3 words, but I've kind of taken this approach to things where I try to compare myself to an animal, if that makes any sense. So if I had to pick 3 words, it'd probably be like, the first 2 words won't matter, but I'm a wolf, because even though I'm a Leo by sign, and a lot of people know what Leos are capable of and how, fiery we can be, like a wolf is like my animal, I had to compare myself to something, it would be a wolf, because they just have a lot of the same characteristics that I have in my everyday life. So that's not really 3 words, it's 1, but the short sentence,
Yeah. Okay, great. What's one fact about you that most people might not know?
Oh, okay. Gosh, there's a lot. I'm pretty private. One fact about that nobody would know. If I say it, then everybody's going to know it, and I'll lose my anonymity. Let me think. That's a tough question, because we are pretty private. Gosh, I don't know. You have completely caught me off guard.
Okay.
Can we circle back to that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We can skip. Okay. Can you tell me about the journey or inspiration behind your work or project, or any project, if you want to focus on a particular project?
Yeah. I think, the journey that we've been through, and I say we, I talk about B22, which is my wife's production company that she founded, and then I've kind of come on, and we've grown this thing from the ground up, and I think it's balance, like we both come from very different backgrounds, different upbringings, different parts of the country, and we have different work ethics, and she's very good at things that I can't stand doing, and then she wants me to do things that she doesn't like to do. And so
complement each other, basically.
Yeah. And I think with any filmmaking process, this word collaborative gets thrown around a lot, which I have a very love-hate relationship with the word. I don't like the word. Sometimes people take collaborative as a way of saying my opinions matter as much as above the line, and it's not always the case. So I think what really inspires me is that you have at least one person, in my case, typically you have one person that at the end of the day, no matter how bad the project is, no matter how rough of a day it was on set, how awful the casting, whatever it is, that person's there through thick and thin. They're not going anywhere, and okay, one person that I can rely on. And ideally, you want to have 4, 5, 6, 2 dozen of those people, which we do. We have a very tight-knit core of people that we continue to work with on all our projects, and it makes the process go quicker. We joke about it, but there are times on set where me and, let's say, Anthony Gutierrez and Tiffany or whoever, we can look at each other and we already know, okay, Brett didn't like that, let's do this, let's do that. And that's invaluable, because once we sub some of these people out with newcomers or people that we don't know, there's a new learning curve of how we work on set. At least I know personally, when I go home at night, I have a partner that's like, we understand how this is going, here's some things we can do to change it. And that's what keeps you going, to where you don't get so burnt out that you just throw out, because we've had those projects where we're like, maybe we should go back to getting real jobs, but we're lucky enough to be filmmakers full time. But I don't think either one of us or anybody on the team, would want to do it if you had to go at it alone,
Yeah, for sure. So how did your experience shape your approach to producing, directing, and acting or writing?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think I was always doing producer work without actually calling myself a producer. And I think producer gets thrown around a lot. Anybody with a checkbook that's paying actors for a day on set is now a producer. I produced film. People don't know the difference between an associate producer and an executive producer and a co-producer, and these titles just get thrown around. And so Tiffany, being a Producers Guild of America member, she was privy to a lot of this information of like how it's actually done and what these producers actually do. So I joined the PGA with her because it's an invaluable wealth of information. The conferences, the video calls, it's another level of filmmaking when you really know what you're doing and you're not just renting a camera and getting a bunch of people together and throwing it together, which is fine because that's how I started. So there's nothing against that. But I think I was doing all this production work and it's fine. But when you're doing something so often and so long that it's impeding on your writing and your directing and your acting, whatever it is, you don't want to do it anymore, and so it's nice to be able to farm that work out and just concentrate on a script or working with the actors. And that's just kind of how we approach it. As filmmakers, I feel like we don't make movies to just make money, in a weird way. We make money to make more movies, and it keeps our pipeline full of content and exciting new projects. But that being said, it's just a kind of a long way to say, I try to learn a little bit about every position on set. So I know the producing, I know the writing, I know the directing, I know some editing now. I'm getting dangerous into that, VFX work, casting. It's important. And I know like Tom Cruise just came out with that whole filmmakers need to know more than just, acting. And it's true because, just for an example, a lifetime ago, I did a movie with Michael Ironside and we're at the poker table and I was the writer and I got to come on set and they threw me on the poker scene with them. And I thought that was cool. And Michael would always ask the DP, what lens are we on? Because he would want to position himself. He knew that between a 50-50 and a 35 and there's so many actors that don't know that stuff. They just know action and cut. And so I think the more you educate yourself, the more you know about the entire filmmaking process, the longer you can go in the business, because you adapt and you can do different jobs when you get burnt out on one or the other,
That's true. Yeah. So how do you prepare for a project usually? You said you write your own projects, but does it happen that you might take other people's writing and then produce it?
Yeah, sure. That is the preference. The preference is to find at this point of our careers. But we have so much going on. It would be fantastic for someone to approach with a script that we can produce, and I think we've done it a few times. One out is Foreclosure. That was. Gosh, he's going to kill me if he ever sees this because I can't remember his name. But, it was his script and we tweaked it a little bit and we produced it and it was great. We did Honor Among Thieves with somebody else's script, things like that. The issue we run into is, to me, there's two types of filmmakers. There's people that talk about being a filmmaker and there's filmmakers. And I think what kind of rubs me the wrong way is, everybody's script, no matter how good, is worth millions of dollars in their mind. This is $1 million project, $10 million project. When in reality, if you wrote a script for a big studio like Sony or Fox, when that script gets to screen, it'll probably look nothing like what you envisioned when you wrote.
Mhm.
The reality of a screenwriter's job is horrible. Yes, your name is up there, but it's probably not even your script. They've hired 4 more writers to rewrite it, blah, blah, blah. But the issue that we run into is with our business model, these scripts need to be pretty lean on locations, and we can't afford to have helicopter chases and, 40-minute shootouts and things like that. So when we do get a script, we will, and it's interesting enough for us to sit down and take a few hours out of the day to read it. A lot of the writers that we encounter aren't open to the rewrite.
Yeah.
And so, hey, it's their script, it's their baby, more power to them. But you can either make the movie or you cannot make the movie, so it really just depends on a screenwriter what you want. Do you want to get your foot in the door and hit the ground running, or are you that married to the script that may never get produced because you're have such a chokehold on it that you're not willing to make any changes? So I think that's why we tend to write our own movies, is because we just know what the distributor wants. We know what the people want. Do we have passion projects that we'd love to do? For sure. But there's either not a market for it right now, or there's no shelf space for it right now, or we don't have the funding right now. So we make what the people want. And I mean, my God, it's like if we sat around waiting for the $6 million to make the passion project, we'd be living in the street,
That's true.
So sometimes you have to put that pride aside and make projects maybe you necessarily don't want to make, but you have fun doing it. And how many people can wake up and say, I'm a filmmaker? It's a crazy profession, and that's what it is. So, it's just get out there and do it, and be open to the notes and open to the changes.
So do you have like a formula to write a script?
I do.
You follow or something, right?
Yeah. When it's a movie that has a decent budget, like the one we just wrapped, The Veil, which we shot up in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, had a healthy budget, and we were able to take our time and not rush through the days and set the shots up the way we wanted. That formula is very standard, to where I'll try to do a 80 to 90 page script, three sections, make sure all the characters have an arc, make sure tying up the story the way it needs to be tied. That's always the preference. When we do our low budget features, it's a little more, okay, we're making a movie about a shark, in a lake, Texas. So we have some freedom to not have to make the script a certain amount of pages, because we know, okay, we'll add this when we're on set, and those projects are very refreshing, because it's almost like you can kind of do what you want, but what the studio rules are. Obviously we always follow the rules, but we don't have to be as structured, and those tend to be a lot more, I don't want to use the word fun, but they tend to be a lot more, open to ideas, to changing things, to, rewriting dialogue, things like that. Whereas the healthier budget ones, you have a producer or someone sitting over your shoulder going, well, that's not what's written here, and that's not what's on schedule for today, and we can't move this. So the formula varies on the budget, and then, I always preach to people, just keep it as lean as you can. If you don't need a character to push the story forward, get rid of her or him. If you don't need a location, if you can't afford a location, come up with something else, and lucky enough, independent filmmakers at this level, you can not have to answer to the studio to say, well, this is why we cut that out because of XYZ, and they're not like, no, we want it in there. So it just, the process is the same, but it varies on the budget.
Yeah, that's great. Great stuff. So what was one unexpected challenge you faced when you got started? Is there any challenge that changed the perspective?
Yeah, everybody that watches this, or anyone that wants to be a filmmaker, I mean, funding is always the hurdle. Okay. It's always this cross to bear where you have to find it, then you owe it, and there's no guarantee that you'll ever get it, you know? So you're trying to convince someone that, hey, give me $500,000. So that's the first hurdle. Then the next hurdle is give it to me. Here's why. You have to believe in this project. And then the third hurdle is you may never see a dime of that. We don't know. You don't know. You know, if you had Mel Gibson in your movie, there's a good chance. But, you know, let's be honest, most people don't have Mel Gibson in their movie. So you don't know. So that's the hardest part. But I just, a real quick story to get through, anyone's wondering how to get through it. The very first movie that I directed had a bunch of Hollywood names in it, and it was the worst 3 weeks of my life by far. I mean, these guys, or this guy made my life hell for 3 weeks, you know, and I remember telling Tiffany, who was, you know, we were seeing each other at the time, I remember thinking, like, this can't be how it is. It can't be that we raised $500,000 and we made this movie and this guy just totally sabotaged the product. And it still has never come out. The movie is sitting on a shelf somewhere because one, awful because he sabotaged it, and two, I just was never happy with the way it turned out. And so when we came home from that, we were like, there has to be something that we can go right into. Save our souls from this pit of like movie making is awful, you know? And so we did this zero budget movie. At the time it was called Pale, and then they changed the name to Apocalypse Road. We did that movie with nothing, with like $5 per 20 minutes that we shot it, and we ate cheap lunches, and we whole movie on a Ronin moving so we wouldn't have to worry about setups. And we didn't get permits. We just run and gun and ask for forgiveness. And the movie turned out really, really well. It's got a ton of flaws, but it was our first, like, let's do this ourselves with nobody helping. And so that taught me, at least, that there's always a way to get it done. It's just perspective. If I was home from Creep, which was that other movie, if I would have come home and said, now I've got to go raise another $500,000 and go through that garbage again, I probably would have gone back to a regular job, you know, but switched my mentality to, I'm going to do it in spite of that, to prove that that's not how it is, you know? And so I think funding has no longer become a concern to me, because let's just say we have a movie we want to make and we think we need $250K to shoot it and we can't get it. We're going to pivot to something lower that we can still enjoy and come back to it, or we're going to make that $250,000 movie for half of that and just make it, you know? And so that's where I think the mentality change is just, it can't be that way. It isn't that way, despite, you know, someone trying to force you to see otherwise. So just, you know, my thing is just go make the movie. That's what we're, you know, we're not here to talk about them. We're not here to overlight them. We're not here to, you know, location scout till we're blue in the face. Just go make the movie.
Just make it happen.
Yeah.
So just a follow-up question on raising funding. So as a startup, how would you be able to convince the investors that, because if somebody gives you money, they want their money back plus a percentage on top of that, right? So how do you convince them to, like, how they gonna get their money back?
It's tough. I don't think that there is a good answer.
I know.
So
but in your situation, what happened? Like,
so my situation, which I think is a lot of people's situation, but they don't know it. They think it's about the dollars. The people that you're pitching these projects to, they have to believe in you, not your script or what you're writing or if they don't like you, If
Yeah.
they believe that you are the person that can do it, it's never going to happen. The money's gone. It'll never come back. Doesn't matter if the movie's good or not. You know, we've had people invest time and time again because they were friends of ours and they believed in what we were doing and how we were doing it. And so, you know, if someone asked me like, how do I get the money for this? There are a ton of people out there. You know, Tiffany and I got to meet Charles Robin last year in LA at the Produce By conference. And, you know, he's a producer for Christopher Nolan. And you know, he said something that just resonated with us. He's like, there are a lot of well-to-do, wealthy people that just would love to see their names written in big letters in a movie theater. You know, but it's not as easy as just saying, hey, lend me this money and I'll get you 100% and I'll give you 80%. You have to prove to that person that you are the reason they should invest, you know, which is what we did with 90 Feet from Home. We found investors that believed in me and Tiffany and the story too, but it was more personal relationships, you know, and the only way to do that is to sit down in front of that person and sell yourself. Forget the movie, you know, just sell who you are, what you believe in, your beliefs, what you think, what you feel. And then the movie money will come, but that person has to believe in you before they're going to give you anything.
Yeah.
Without the guarantee of getting it back. You know,
That's true.
You know, that's a tough one. That'll keep you up at night, you know, when you owe people money. And we see a lot of projects here in Texas that get funding, a lot of money in funding, and either the project never gets finished, never gets released, or before it's released, they're making a sequel and looking for more money. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind because it's, as an investor, I haven't gotten a dime back, but now I'm being asked for more money for a better project and a better one. And this one's going to be better. And that one's, but nothing has made a return. To me, it's not a project, it's a person issue.
Yeah.
That person have what it takes to make the money back.
Wow. Do you have any tips about distribution?
Yeah.
Or recommendations?
It's tough, and I know nobody probably will ever figure out the puzzle that is a distribution deal, you know, because there are so many loopholes and so many ways for distributors to work around things. You know, we've been blessed to work with a distributor that we have grown to become friends with and enjoy working with. You know, most people I talk to are like, oh, I don't like that distributor. I don't like this one. This one I didn't make any money. That's the game. You know, to me, a distributor is great because they're going to distribute your film everywhere, but there's no guarantee that you're going to make any money off of it. Self-distribution, I mean, you've got to have nothing going on in your life to take that full-time job on, you know, of creating art and captions and dialogue cue sheets and all this other stuff, and then checking Amazon every 5 minutes to make sure it's making money. And so I don't subscribe to the self-distribution. I think my advice for distribution is before you give a distributor your film, because we've been burned by distributors, you know, plenty of time, you really need to know who you're working with. And so, again, I think it becomes a personality thing more than a professional thing. You know, Tiffany and I flew out to Los Angeles to meet a distributor for 90 Feet from Home, and they totally threw the wool over our eyes. And they took our movie and held it for a year before they released it. And I had to threaten, you know, with legal action to get the movie back. And the funny thing is they would never give us the time of day until I took to Twitter at the time and just totally bashed this company. And the owner of the company called me from Switzerland and was like, here's your movie back. We're so sorry. So the power of social media, you know, it's more powerful than any lawyer. So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with on the distribution side. I don't think there's an answer to it besides you have to vet the distributor as hard as you can, talk to other filmmakers that have used them. And sometimes that doesn't work because I've had people come up to me and say, hey, how do you feel about this distributor? And I'll say, no, don't do it. And they'll do it anyway because they know what to say. They know how to get you salivating for, oh, I got a Lionsgate deal, I got a Sony deal, when really you're dealing with like a subsidiary of that company that nobody's ever heard of, and so it's dangerous, it's very tough, but I'm always willing, and Tiffany and I are always willing to talk to people about it and give them other options. But you'd be surprised how resistant to that information people can be,
Wow. Great tips. So how do you see filmmaking evolving in the next few years, especially with AI?
Yeah.
Are you worried about it? Are you in favor of it?
Not really. I mean, we encounter a lot of filmmakers on set that are, when the AI discussion happens, I kind of back away and go to craft services, it's that ugly discussion. Someone will say, hey, who made that poster? Oh, it was AI. Oh, I'm anti-AI. What I think, to answer your question, no, I'm not worried about it. I think ChatGPT and Sora and some of these other technologies, they're dangerous for certain aspects of filmmaking, visual effects, graphic artists. I think those two industries, music, I was playing around with a software AI where you can just type in the title of a song and it spits out this song for you. So I think there are aspects of filmmaking that are going to suffer, but the technology isn't there. It's not there to where you can say, hey, Gilbert, here's my script. Go ahead and direct it and edit it and score and make artwork. It's not there. And I think people are freaking out over nothing. I say that maybe to comfort myself because to prove, I just don't, I sit there going, there's not a computer on the planet that can do what we do right now. Will that change in 10 years? Maybe. I doubt it. But I think with Hollywood, there's always this overcorrection. If a certain demographic of filmmakers isn't getting enough recognition, they overcorrect it. Now only that demographic is recognized. If a certain form of music isn't represented in film, then the next year only that type of music is the soundtrack for the film. So I think AI is the hot topic, so we're only going to talk about AI. But there's other cool stuff going on, they just don't talk about it. Mainly like the future of the industry is you're seeing that mass exodus of productions coming out of Los Angeles and going to places like Las Vegas and New Jersey, which is just building a massive Netflix studio, Albuquerque, Texas to an extent. I think Texas is a little bit of an overcorrection again of, Taylor Sheridan's made some really great, programs out here. So now Texas is it, but they've been saying about that for 10 years and it's just now starting to gain some traction. So is it the next Hollywood? I doubt it. Could it be? Hopefully. But I think the future is going to be virtual studios like what we do. We can make a movie anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country at any time. We're not worried about theatrical stuff. We're not worried about any of these things that these big studios are worried about. We're not worried about residuals and certain aspects of the unions and things like that. And it's invaluable because we're able to just, we were talking before we came on here, all these credits that we have in upcoming films, like 13 or so, we're able to keep going because we're not being bogged down by a union issue or production stalls or a strike or anything like that. So I really think the future of independent film is in this mass exodus out of California, and being able to, from your living room, from a country club, wherever you are, write a script and put it into production, And I think the studios are afraid of that. I really do. I think they're starting to see this. People aren't going to the movie theaters as much, and, people aren't just watching everything that gets thrown out there like they used to. So it opens opportunities for people like us to say, hey, we're over here too doing XYZ, come check it out. And so it works.
Can you explain to the audience what you mean by virtual studios?
Yeah. So This was brought up to me by our distributor, who considers themselves a virtual studio. You can be anywhere. We can be on a beach in Maui or on a cruise ship. You know, my wife and I love cruising, and we could be on a cruise ship doing pre-production work. All you need is some Wi-Fi and a laptop. You know, we don't have to be in a writer's room, you know, at Sony Studios for 14 hours drinking buckets of coffee. You know, so virtual in the sense that me and Tiffany and, you know, Nicole or whoever else, we can all be anywhere at once working on a project where we don't have to be in Los Angeles.
Got it. Okay.
In a room, you know, and we can film anywhere. You know, we don't have to rent out studio. We can film in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, wherever you want to go. So I think people can start, you know, branching out and saying, well, it's kind of like COVID with the work from home movement.
Yeah.
People start to realize, you know, I go to the office every day. I get up at 5:30 every day, and I drink some coffee, and I get dressed, and I sit in an hour of traffic to go do some accounting job in a cubicle that I could do in my pajamas at home.
Yeah.
So why are we doing that? So that's the same mentality with independent film, is like, why am I telling myself I have to uproot and move to California and scratch away to get into a studio? So, you know, no, it's not like that anymore, you know?
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, let's take a break and play a game, This or That, and it's a rapid fire. Are you ready, Brett?
I think so. I'm kind of nervous.
Okay, indie film or blockbuster?
I'm going to say blockbuster.
One long take or multiple quick cuts?
Oh, long take for sure.
Practical effects or CGI effects?
Practical. Yeah.
Scripted precision or improvised magic?
Improvised magic.
Studio control or creative freedom?
The freedom for sure. 100%.
Silent storytelling or dialogue-driven scenes?
Ooh, dialogue.
Handheld realism or smooth cinematic shots?
Smooth for sure.
Dark, moody lighting or bright, colorful visuals?
I'm going to say dark and moody.
Big name actors or rising talent?
Oh, gosh. Do I want to make money?
Yeah, good question.
I'm going to say rising talent.
Slow burn drama or fast-paced action?
That's another good one. I'm going to say fast-paced action.
Great. Okay, so what's one crucial piece of advice would you give someone interested in filmmaking?
Crucial piece of advice. I mean, there's a lot, but
Yeah.
I always say the same thing, so I'll stick with it. I've been saying this for way too long. But choose your producers very carefully. Very carefully. I mean, the wrong producer, since they probably don't even know what a producer really does, will absolutely destroy your project. It'll make you hate the business. And it is a business. You know, let's just get that straight. You know, at the end of the day, it is a business to make money. We're not just in it to not make money. I mean, it's insane to me, you know, and if you're good at it, why would you do it for free for an extended time, you know? But choose your producers, because I've been on projects where producers, you've got them over your shoulder. They don't really know their role on set. And so when it comes to finding a production team, make sure that the people know their role. They're going to stick to it. As hard of a conversation as it might be, let them know what their job is as a producer. And if you can't have that discussion with them, you don't even know what a producer does. And you better research, you know, because executive producers don't necessarily need to come on set and start talking to the actors in between takes, telling them how to, you know, there's just, it happens though. It's happened to me. Or a producer doesn't need to be in the monitor saying, this doesn't look right. Let's move this, let's move that. Now, that being said, they can do that, but you allow it. It may be someone like Tiffany can do that all day because I got to go home with her, you know, and if she's not happy, my life's over, but no, she can do that because she's earned that right to be able to say, hey, this is what I like, what I don't like. But we've worked with other producers where you're like, what are you doing? That's not your job. And so that would be my piece of advice is you pick the right producers and you'll have the right team behind you. Otherwise you're off to a bad start already.
As a director on set, how do you balance between your vision versus, I know we mentioned about collaborative work, but at the same time, it's your vision, right?
Yeah.
Like when you watch a movie when you watch a movie for Wes Anderson, you can see the symmetrical shots or like type of production design that they're set. So it's Wes Anderson or Tarantino or whatever.
Mhm.
How do you balance that?
It's having a vision only works if everybody buys into it, So if I have a vision for a film, it's important to pick a director of photography that can share that vision, actors that can share that vision. If you can't find anybody to do that, then you're stuck with a project where you're going to be doing 99% of the work. You'll be doing everything, sound and maybe acting, which I do think that's why some actors like a Ben Affleck and people like that have gotten into directing, because as an actor, you can suggest things and you can, you have the text and you need to memorize it and be there on time and all that. But it's not your vision. It's what the director wants, what the production needs. And so that's hard, for a lot of people. And I think it's hard for cinematographers to hear a director say, no, that's not what I was thinking, because they're like, but that's what I was thinking, And I think that drives cinematographers to become directors. And we've experienced that where people have been hired to shoot movies for us, and we start butting heads on set and tempers flare, and it's not because you don't like the person, but it's because this was my vision and you signed on to a contract to support that vision, and now you're changing that, and it's insulting to a director, because you almost feel like, well, then why are you here if you didn't buy into it? So I've had DPs that I'm like, I can't hire you to shoot a movie anymore because you want to be a movie director. So go be a movie director. And I think they're taken back by that. Like, why are you telling me this? And at the end of the day, I go back to, I'm telling you because now you can't go through life and say, well, nobody told me to go be a director. Just go do it. Yeah. And so the vision is ours as a movie director, and editing and all that, they put their 2 cents in and you collaborate on it. But at the end of the day, if you feel so strongly about some vision and you're not directing that film, that's what you need to be doing. That's fate telling you you're not supposed to be a sound op or hair and makeup. You're supposed to be directing your own movie if you feel that strongly about it.
So in your opinion, what's one misconception about filmmaking or producing, directing, or writing that you'd like to clear up?
I would say, because we talk about this quite a bit, especially on all sides of it. There's probably 3 to 4 months of pre-production on a project that used $0 to do. Okay, I mean, let's just put it out on the table. We don't get paid to cast the movie. I don't get paid to write the movie half the time. You don't get paid to stay up at night thinking about the movie. You don't get paid for the midnight conversations about the movie. You don't get paid to location scout until you get to the level of a studio filmmaker. You're doing months and months of pre-production for free. Mm-hmm. Then you get your pre-production funding and you get paid a little bit, and then you get paid to make the movie. And then when you get into post-production, you're doing way above and beyond what you thought, and that is also free. And so the misconception to me is, I think a lot of people see how much work we do and they just think, man, these guys must be raking it in, and it's like, we have an amazing life. My wife and I, we've built an amazing life, but it is so much more work for for free than anyone realizes. And I think that's why a lot of people give up, because they think, well, I'm getting paid to this, paid to do that. At this level, you have to have the work ethic that I have. That's, you want the work more than the reward, and the reward will come. And sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. We have projects that we've screwed up on some budgeting thing, or a blizzard came through, or torrential rains, and we end up not making a dime on the movie. But it doesn't send us home crying like we'll never do this again. You know, it's just, it's a lesson. And so you've got to want the work.
Yeah. So this will take us to the next question. How do you keep motivated, stay motivated, inspired?
It's hard. It's very hard. Tiffany and I will sometimes come home from certain sets and be like, this is it, we're done. You know, it be that hard. I mean, it can bring you, I remember editing a movie one time and I was just in tears. Like I couldn't do it. And I just slam in the chair and she walks in and I'm crying. This grown adult is crying over freaking Adobe Premiere. I mean, what's happening, you know? The only way to stay motivated is to wake up. Whenever you wake up in the morning, let's say it's 6, let's say it's 5, it's 7, and look up at that ceiling and just go, where would I be right now if I wasn't trying to do this? You'd probably be sitting in traffic, you know, trying to squeeze a workout in at 5 in the morning. And there is so much value in living the life you want to live and doing what you want to do. Even if you make less money, even if you're busy all the time, you're just not out there making someone else rich. You know, you're trying to make yourself wealthy, and you're trying to build wealth within yourself by doing what you want to do. So that keeps us motivated. And then one of the things that we're getting older, you know, and when you get older, it's harder to stay active, and you get tired and everything hurts in the morning, and take vacation, man. You know, like we take holiday, you know, we're like, okay, we've made 3 movies. We're going to go take a 2-week vacation, you know, and half the time we're like, well, how are we going to afford this vacation? And it's like, who cares, you know, because in 20 years or whenever it is, let's say this dream is over and a new chapter is starting. I want to be able to look back and be like, man, in my 40s, we made a ton of cool movies and took some amazing vacations, you know, and I look back and be like, all I did was make movies. And, you know, I used to have brown facial hair, you know, and then, I mean, I look in the mirror, I'm like, what happened? You know, and like, but it's because every 3 to 6 months, we take an amazing vacation and make awesome memories. And then when we come back, we're reset and we start over again, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. We're reaching to the end of the show. Is there, how can our audience connect with you or learn about your work?
Yeah, so we can, you know, our body of work is kind of spread everywhere, from Amazon to Tubi to Zumo, you know, everywhere, Pluto, all of the streaming platforms. The social media is big. Just look for B22 Films. We try to post our trailers there. We have a YouTube page that's kind of growing at the moment. But, you know, our email is pretty simple, just b22films@gmail. It's very generic, so if it's important or you really have a good question, it'll get filtered to either Tiffany or I. And then just our social media is kind of where we put the movies we have upcoming and things like that. One question we get a lot of is, you know, actors, where can we audition? You know, all of our castings go through, Tiffany works through Actors Access. Implore the actors to get on there and you'll see the listing, rather than, you know, just kind of say, hey, I think I'm perfect for your movie. Where can I, you know, I'm sure you're great, but I'm not going to watch it, you know? And so, yeah, B22 Films on all the social media platforms. And then our email's just at Gmail. So.
Are there any upcoming projects or collaborations you're excited about?
Yeah, we just wrapped a film that I'm extremely passionate about, and it's very deep and meaningful. The Veil. We just wrapped it. It's in post-production. It looks amazing, and it's a very personal story. about the effects of divorce on children. And we're about to start pre-production on a ridiculous movie about a bunch of mobsters that fight a tornado. I know it's called Mafia NATO, but I guarantee you will laugh because it's a funny story. And then we have an upcoming movie that we can't really talk a lot about, but it is a horror movie, and that one is going to be very fun and exciting because it's not been done before, and it's it'll be a very fun movie. And then we just have tons more upcoming, but those are kind of the two projects that are next on the calendar.
Yeah, that's great. We're reaching the end, Brett. That's all, folks. Thanks, Brett. Brett Bentman, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.